Cool.
Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Spiritual Matters Thursday here at the Daily Huddle. I'm your host, Dr. Monikah Ogando, and I am excited that we are here together again in keeping with the dark night of the year, as it were, because we are in the darkest moments of winter. Today's topic is how do you deal? How do you overcome a dark night of the soul, as it were? You may have heard of the phrase when you sometimes feel at your lowest, at your darkest, when you don't have answers and you're wondering, how the heck am I going to get out of this? Or why the heck did I get myself into this, et cetera, et cetera. And so today we're going to talk about how do you deal with the dark night of the soul? Welcome to the Daily Huddle. Hello, welcome again. Good morning again. Good evening, wherever you are. You know, we have an international audience. So, again, Dr. Monikah Ogando here, and I'm excited to talk to you today about how do you deal with the dark night of the soul. And many traditions, many spiritual traditions have this episode in our spiritual unfoldment as a common theme in our spiritual unfoldment. In the Bible, for example, you may have heard of Jonah in the belly of the whale, or even Jesus in the 40 days out in the desert, the 40 years of Moses and his people in the desert as well. And 40 being a metaphysically significant number because it signifies an indefinite but complete amount of time. And you may have felt as though your dark night of the soul was also indefinite. Like, how much longer, Lord? What is going on? And when am I getting out of here? Why is this happening? And the way that you can make it, albeit an indefinite, but the way that you can make it a complete amount of time is number one, by exercising your acceptance muscle. Exercising your acceptance muscle. What do I mean by that? There are some days that we don't like what's happening, and sometimes even worse. I'll say we despise what's happening, but we can't deny what's happening. Like right now, for example, I'm not in my regular office in Atlanta, Georgia. I am in Tennessee in my daughter's home. And in Tennessee, they have seen some snow. I'm looking outside the window right now, and there's snow on the benches in the backyard and so forth. And when I come out to the yard, it's starting to pack because they haven't cleared the streets yet. And so if I were to go out there with the same sandals as I walk around in the house, I would slip and fall because those sandals are not designed for hard packed snow, right? And yet, if I were to do that and be like, why is this happening to me? Well, Monikah, it's happening because you're unprepared, because you are unequipped for hard packed snow. And you knew you were coming to Nashville, Tennessee, and you knew that there was hard packed snow out there. And so we sometimes do this also in our lives where we may enter a new phase, we may enter a new environment or a new situation, but because we are resistant to that new situation and we want to kind of like force it to be the same as it was before, we act as though things haven't changed, and then we slip and fall in the hard packed snow because we haven't changed our wardrobe. And so that's step number one in terms of dealing with a hard phase of life or a dark night of the soul is number one, acceptance. Accept what is. Be clear about what is happening, what is going on, what is the environment, and how is it affecting, right? The second step to that is to give thanks for that awareness. because what we are thankful for, we amplify. Yeah. And so the conversation then begins to be about, well, if everything is meant for me, if everything is happening through me and not just to me, then why is this here? What is the helpful, positive, forward moving reason why this thing is here? And what can I be thankful for? Right? Um, to continue using the very simple example of being now in Nashville and having it be hard packed snow outside. What am I thankful for? I'm thankful that I can come here and support my daughter. She had to hop on a flight and attend a memorial service for a shipmate of hers. As you guys know, my daughter's in the Navy. And a very, very dear friend and a shipmate of hers passed away suddenly, tragically, in a motorcycle accident. Nobody knew, of course, that was going to happen. And so all of their crew got together and are attending the funeral this weekend. And I'm here babysitting her dogs, right? And so I'm thankful that she has somebody to rely on, to be able to kind of lean on when things get hard emotionally. Thankful that I can be there for her to support her with the dogs, even though I am not, hear it well, a dog mom. Right. And I'm thankful that she has the wherewithal to be able to do that. There was a time when somebody passed away, it was like, I'm sorry, I can't go. I don't have the money, or I don't have the time, or I can't get off work, or I don't have. So even though I am not a dog mom, I hate the cold. I am not particularly fond of Nashville, Tennessee. I am, however, thankful that I get to support my daughter in this way. It aligns with the identity of I love my daughter and I want to support her, right? Like being a good mom. I am a good Sarah mom. I may not be a good dog mom, but I'm a good Sarah mom, right? And so I'm thankful for that. And then the third step to doing this is surrender. To surrender. What is the difference between acceptance and surrender, you may ask? Acceptance is really just being clear about what is happening, like just this is what it is. Don't sugarcoat it. Don't make it worse than what it is, but also don't make it better than what it is. Sometimes we tend to kind of like do this spiritual bypass on each other and just go immediately for the positive so that we can feel better. Acceptance is just this is what it is, right? Surrender is okay, and it sucks. Yeah, and I'm not happy about this. And yes, I'm going to do it, and I'm going to help you, and I am happy that you can, depend on me and da da da. And I am not particularly fond of being in this house with these dogs. Okay, not happy about it. So surrender is really just acknowledging and allowing that you are suffering, or that you are displeased, or that you're disappointed, whatever those negative feelings may be, whatever those dark emotions may be that are arising in your experience, surrender to that. And some of us are very scared, intimidated even by our sadness, by our anger, by our despair. We don't like to give it too much thought. We don't like to give it too much weight, because I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, this may not be your experience, but put a 1 in the chat if it is. I think sometimes we believe that it's like, if I give way to this sadness or this anger or this despair, it's just going to take over. Like I'm holding on to so much sadness that if I give in just a little, I might drown in my tears. I might just spill over to my family. I can't afford, I have to hold it together. So I can't afford to just give in a little bit to this anger or this sadness or this despair, because who knows where this may lead. So I have to keep kind of holding tight. Have you ever had that experience? Put a 1 in the chat if this is your experience. If it's not your experience, just say, I don't know what you're talking about, Monica. I am perfectly processing my emotions, and this is not my issue. I see some ones, yes. Great. And so surrender is allowing you to have your emotions, not have to let your emotions have you. There's a difference. And what I'm asking you to do is to have your emotions, have your anger without your anger having you, have your sadness without your sadness having you, have your despair without your despair having you. There's a part of you, I'll never forget when I read the book, The Road Less Traveled by M. Scott Peck. He was a psychotherapist in the army, I believe. It was in one of the armed forces. And he was treating what they called it, military spouses as they dealt with the changes and the ups and downs and the psychological impact of having to move around and the uncertainty of whether your spouse is coming home because they're out in battle, etc. And he was talking about a particular patient in this chapter in the book where she said that she was always depressed. And there was never a time when she was not depressed. And so she was very entrenched, very positioned in and like owning her depression. But I would venture to say she was letting her depression define her. So Dr. Peck gave her an assignment. I said, when you go home, I get what you're saying. I get what you're saying that there's never a time when you're not depressed, but I want you to observe the degrees of depression that you may experience. So when you go home, I want you to take note in your journal about the times when you feel really, really depressed, when you're down, 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 and what was happening when your depression was really low. And then when it was mild, note that as well. And what was happening then? Maybe there's a difference in your sleep pattern. Maybe there's a difference in your eating. Maybe there's a difference about who you're exposed to, who you're talking to, who you're hanging with, what you're doing, etc. Just note these differences. And then when you come back for our next session, we'll talk about it. And she said, okay. And she went off and to dutifully do her psychotherapy homework. When she came back to the next session and she was giving him her results, he paused for a second and he was like, that's so interesting. Let me ask you something. The part of you that was observing the depression and the degrees of depression when it was high, when it was mild, was that part of you also depressed? And that kind of stopped her in her tracks. She's like, no. The part of me that was observing my depression was actually quite neutral, right? Have you heard me tell the story again? Because this is one of my favorite parts in that book. And for me, it was like the creak in the door that allowed the possibility that maybe your depression doesn't have you. It may be true that you have depression, but that depression has you is an option. Just from that possibility of I can observe my depression without being depressed. That was a possibility that wasn't available to her before. And so what I'm asking you to do with this surrender is there's a part of you that is unaffected by the things that make you sad or angry or despair or depressed or whatever emotion you want to ascribe to that situation. There's a part of you that is unaffected by it, that can just observe it without judgment even, that can call it depression without being depressed, that can call it sadness without feeling sad. And I venture to say that the part of you that is unaffected by that is the essence of you, is the essence of who you are as a consciousness observing your human experience. Isn't that wild? There's a part of you that's like, oh, look at Robin over there writing a book. Oh, look at Stan over there going to go hug his wife. What did he do today? Right? And not affected by it at all, just kind of observing it, narrating it. Imagine having like your own Morgan Freeman narrator in your own minds, like, and he was wrong, right? And so when you can create that distance in your own mind about your own experience, then you can allow for some possibilities. You can actually more fully surrender when you are not identified as the experience. I know that sounds like an oxymoron, but let me explain. Have you ever noticed when you go to the movies and there's like a really emotional scene And there is a part of you that's like really sad, really moved by this person's death or this person's words or this depth of love that these people experience on the screen or whatever. You're like, oh my God, this is so beautiful. And you're just amazed and moved, right? And maybe if you're watching the movie by yourself, or maybe if you're watching it with somebody that you love and that shares your and that it feels like a safe space, you'll let it rip. You'll be like, ah, this is gorgeous. I can't believe it. And then if you're like among some friends that you're kind of posturing and you're just kind of like being the cool kid in school, you won't let yourself feel it, right? You'd be like, that must be onions. Like, they're peeling onions in here. And you won't let yourself feel it, even though there's a part of you that's like completely moved to tears about the beauty of that love or the tenderness of that moment, right? And so that's what I'm talking about in terms of surrender. That when you know that you are in a safe space, and you are a safe space for yourself, believe it or not, when you know that you're in a safe space, you can just let it rip, even though there's a part of you in your mind that understands that when you're in the movies that this is a blank screen and there are light photons emitting in there. Nothing is actually happening. Bambi didn't really die, right? Scar didn't really kill Mustafa, right? But you're still in tears. And you allow yourself to feel the sadness of the moment because you understand that this is just what's playing out in the screen and the projection consciousness of your mind. So you can actually more fully surrender when you understand that you are having an experience and the experience is not having you. When you are not in a safe environment, when you have to keep up your image, when you have to like do this posturing thing that we sometimes do with other human beings, then you don't let yourself surrender. You don't let yourself have the full experience, and you're shortchanging yourself. Believe it or not, you're saying to yourself, "My image, or my image to that person, or the persona that I put out to that person is more important than my own experience." And those are little micro betrayals that we give ourselves from moment to moment when we don't allow ourselves to accept and then move through and surrender to our own experience. And the other part, the final part that I'll say, number 4, is to encourage yourself that this too shall pass. This too shall pass. There are no, ever in the history of humankind, there has never been an eternal dark night of the soul. In the morning comes light. No night ever lasts forever. No day lasts forever either, okay? So don't relax yourself, but no night ever lasts forever either. And so when you can encourage yourself to say, this too shall pass, then you can like breathe and pace yourself and allow for the moment. This snow is not going to be here forever. It'll be springtime again. It'll be summer again. And then there'll be no space for this snow, right? I may not be here when that happens because Lord have mercy, I only said I was going to be here for the weekend. But understanding that this happens in your life, that there are phases in your life when no, it's not going to be cold forever. It's not going to be desolate and snow-packed stuff in the garage forever. This allows you some respite, even in the middle of the circumstance, even in the middle of the discomfort or the pain or the whatever the dark emotion might be, even in the middle of that. Just like the yin yang circle, right? That the black circle has a white dot and the white circle has a black dot. Even in the middle of that despair, there's hope. And even in the middle of the joy, there's perspective, right? And so it's not all white and it's not all black. And you can allow yourself that perspective. I'm wondering, have you recently had a dark night of the soul experience? Maybe it doesn't rise to the level of like, oh, this is pivotal, life-shattering moments. Maybe it's just you questioned your career choice or your spouse choice or your food choices or your money choices or whatever. Maybe you face some kind of challenge in that way. Can you see how those 4 steps can help you? What have you faced recently that's like, okay, I kind of fell down on the job on the acceptance part. I can see how I did that. Or oh, I really could take some ground on the surrender part. I don't let myself experience my experience enough. I'm too busy rationalizing it or trying to fix it. What do you think? Tell me about your experience about it.
I had previous experiences where they sent me into the dark night of my soul, sent me into panic attacks, right?
Huh?
Like this is unsurmountable and insurmountable, and and being so in the moment and thinking that nothing's ever going to change. You went through all four of those steps, and I can honestly say, and my sons are getting some benefit of this, that getting the gray hair on my face and surviving the dark nights that I thought I'd never survive, and
Yeah.
getting through all those over and over again builds a level of trust, a level of confidence that it will pass, right?
Hmm.
It doesn't matter how bad it gets.
Yeah.
I had a kidney stone that got stuck in one of the one of the tubes coming out,
Oh, wow.
and yeah, sent me to the hospital. And for that 3 hours between the time it started really coming on and the time they gave me something for that pain, I thought it was never going to end. I thought, this
Hmm.
is it. I'm done. It was excruciating.
Wow.
And then they gave me some morphine, and guess what? It didn't bother me
Ooh,
anymore.
that's the other side of the pillow,
And
honey.
I had to take some pain meds for a couple days, and then it was over. And I thought that was really not as difficult as it seemed to be when I was in the midst of it.
Hmm.
And the other thing I want to share about it is, so maybe the younger people can take some of the gray hair advice and just realize it's going to pass. Like you said, there's never
Hmm.
been one that didn't end.
Hmm.
I've used this with my boys recently. I don't know if it's connecting completely, but in my head it did.
Hmm.
That you can't you can't ever learn to trust if you never have reasons to trust,
To not
right?
trust, right?
So
Hmm.
so when you get to that place where all you can do is cry out to the universe and go, why, when is this going to end, right? You're in good company. First of all, let's
Right.
face it. You can go all the way back in history. There was kings that cried out, why.
Hmm.
And then I see, with my boys, we can have that conversation and go, but look at how you're learning to trust. Look at how, and I use the word serendipity a lot, how because of this dark night of the soul, this thing that you saw as so negative and insurmountable,
Yeah.
look at what came of it, right? So in Christian circles, you say nothing grows at the top of the mountain where we're all having a great time and everything's great. It all grows down in the valley where all the poop and the rotten stuff is. That's where the growth comes.
Yeah.
So learning to trust so that you can get through the next one and then get through the next one, and each
Hmm.
time with less anxiety, less fear, less you know, insecurity about how it's going to come out. So,
Yeah. Brilliant. Brilliant. Yeah. What you just said reminds me of that saying that there's no such thing as a smooth mountain, right? If it was a smooth mountain, you wouldn't be able to climb it.
right.
That's awesome. Good stuff. Who else has something else to share about your own experience with your own dark night of the soul? Dark nights, listen, keep living, right? It's not gonna be just one. Okay, everybody's just Pollyanna and just, nothing happens and I'm just always on the top of the world. That's me. I'm just over here chilling.
Good morning. Good morning, everyone. Thank you. I'm appreciative of this conversation. This is Michelle
Michelle.
chiming in. Um, I really like what you pointed out about or Dr. Peck, who was doing the observing of the depression, the depressive state. And it wasn't the two eyes, the eye as the observer and the eye as the one experiencing the depression,
Yeah.
and choosing which one to identify. So if we can lean over to the observer side or lean into the observer side and knowing, okay, this is not me, I'm having this experience, yes, but beyond that, like you mentioned out the essence of who we are, then we can find relief
Yes.
and a sense of ease from, even though while we're going through the situation.
Mm-hmm.
But remembering to not just what does the Bible say? Not to lean on
Your own understanding.
your own understanding,
Mm-hmm.
and have so much faith in the experience that we know eventually it will pass. But if we can lean more into that observer side of us, and then have a little breathing room as we go through to the outcome of the experience.
Yes.
So I'm taking that on today. I'm taking on that today for my experience, and I'm having with my mom. She's in the just came out of the hospital, and she's back into the rehab / nursing home place. And I don't like where they placed her on that ward, and not back in her section where she was before. And this morning I realized that I am really creating from my fear and my not wanting her to be in this new space.
Yeah.
I'm creating out of my fear each time I go up there, because the last she's been there 3 days or so. And each day I'm finding something wrong. She's not changed. Oh, the floor is dirty. Oh, well, I'm not happy about this. The thing isn't hanging right. And my fear of her not being in her normal space is creating my expectancy of what's wrong with this place where she is. And I haven't really allowed possibility that this might be a good place for her. But I'm so wrapped up in my resistance of wanting her to be where she was that I'm creating much of what I don't want.
That's good. That's a good recognition for you. Yeah.
Yeah. I said, okay, today, Michelle, I'm like, okay, you've got to let that go. You just got to be in the moment, accept that this is where she is right now, give it a chance, and create a possibility of this could be the best place for her right now.
Yeah.
And it's a little tough.
Yeah.
Because I want it to be the way I want it to be.
Absolutely. And guess what? When you were a baby, she had the exact same thought. When you were 2, or when you were 3, or when you had to go to school, or when you had to stay at grandma's house, or wherever it is, that she was like, but it was so much better when she was little and she couldn't talk or crawl. Can't we just go back to the way it was, you know? So I consider it a high honor to be able to hold space for our parents the way that they held space for us when we were coming up.
So that acceptance, very important that you shared that, the surrender and the acceptance. Because I can't change it currently.
Yeah.
So I'm going to surrender that. All is well. All is well.
All is well. Yes. That is an important assumption to make. Thank you, Michelle, for your contribution. That is an important assumption to make, is the assumption that everything that is in front of me is happening for me, not just to me, that it's for my highest good, that I've called it forth to evolve and to grow and to step into the next level of greatness, or the next level of intimacy, or the next level of abundance, or whatever the case may be, even though it may not seem that way at the moment, right? And working out is one of the perfect analogies for this, because when you are in the middle of the squats and you feel that lactic acid on your quads, you're like, this is some BS. How could this possibly be good for me? But if you do it enough, you actually volunteer for that discomfort, and you have some consistency and discipline about it. Eventually, you start looking at yourself in the mirror. I'm not admitting anything, by the way. I'm just saying that this might happen to you. You might look at yourself in the mirror and say, hey, I have a tear on my quad. I need to turn the legs. Hold on now. Let me get some more spots in here. And now you're actually looking forward to it, you know. And this can happen also with even the saddest situations, that you can actually see, wow, yeah, that sucked, but I can see how that grew me. I can see how that deepened my intimacy with my sister, or my spouse, or my friend, or my parent, or whatever the case may be. So thank you so much, everybody, for being here with me and sharing with me. I appreciate you so much. Remember, of course, that we want you to love generously. We want you to laugh loudly, stress less, eat more plant-based food, exercise more. Remember that twerking is a spiritual practice. And give of yourself, your time, your energy, your attention. always try to get yourself at least 7 to 8 hours of sleep. You'd be surprised how much your personality improves after you've had a good night of sleep. And of course, always audit your assumptions. Check yourself before you wreck yourself. Thank you so much for being here. See you next time.
Thank you, Doctor.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
One love, guys. One love.
Uh,
One love. One love. Have a great